Welcome back, everybody. This is ISA Insider News. My name is Max Tim, and we have with us, as always,
Shayna Weber. Hey, everybody.
hello, hello. How is
Hi,
everything? It's
Max.
kind of a crazy, busy Monday, huh?
Yeah, it's a little crazy busy. Kids back in school for the week and just trying to do all the things I do and catch up on all the news and, you know,
Yeah, Mercury seems to be in full retrograde form. Have you been
yeah,
experiencing?
it does.
Yeah, weird communication issues. I've been saying for the past week, I hate admitting that it's something that even exists because it's ridiculous. But every single
It
time,
is.
every
I
single
know.
time.
I know. It just is like it's wackadoo out there.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward. When does it stop? Soon, right?
October like 4th or 5th, I believe.
Okay.
I think.
Like
Yeah.
one more week.
We've got about a
All
week.
right.
If anybody listening or watching, you don't know what Mercury retrograde means, it's an astrology term, but technically speaking, a planet looks like it's going backwards in the sky because it's going around us while we're going around, and so it looks like it's going like this, and so it's in its backwards state right now. And in astrology terms, that means the planet is not working at full capacity.
Yeah, which makes us not work at full capacity. And there's always communication issues and technology issues,
Yeah.
and things break, and
Yeah.
good time.
It's
Good
weird.
time.
It's
Oh,
weird.
but tonight I heard, which is if you're watching this, no, you won't watch it, but maybe it's like this week. Jupiter's supposed to be bigger
Closest we've been in
currently.
like forever or something to Jupiter. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I don't know.
look up in the sky.
We didn't mean to make this a science segment, but I did hear that I think it was Saturn. One of the planets got hit so hard by some random asteroid that it actually tilted.
Really?
Some like huge planet, like a big one, not like, Mercury.
Wow.
Yeah, it's wild. Anyway,
Wow.
that's your news for the week, everybody, and we'll see you next see you next time.
That's your space news.
Yeah. Now let's move on to the top headline of the week. What do we have here?
Well, this is kind of its own planet. The Hollywood sign turns 100.
100 years old. If we had little like noisemakers and yay for
Like, woo, woo.
it's kind of fun. We didn't have it's kind of a slow big news week in the term of film industry or TV industry, Hollywood in general. So I thought, this is kind of cool. They're gonna give the Hollywood sign a huge facelift, and they're gonna be putting 400 gallons of paint into it, make it shine and look amazing. But I just thought this was kind of a fun little opportunity to hit up some fun facts if you didn't know about the Hollywood sign. For one, it's 100 years old. I had no idea. 1923. But I'm assuming you knew this, Shayna, but it was not created with movies in mind.
Right. I did know that. Wasn't it created for the neighborhood?
Yeah, it was a real
Yeah.
estate development,
Mhm.
and it was called Hollywood Land, and it was
Yeah.
to advertise this development. It had 13 letters that spelled out Hollywood Land. The last 4 letters of the sign wouldn't be dropped until 1949. I think that's kind of cool. There were 4,000 light bulbs that graced the original Hollywood Land sign. So this thing was lit up for a very long time until it wasn't. And there was something like the 1940 from 1949 to 1984, it wasn't ever lit up, but for the Olympic Games in 1984, they lit up the Hollywood sign again. It's kind of cool, man.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. There was one suicide. That's how I kind of remember the Hollywood sign because I'm into the weird paranormal ghost world. But Peg Entwistle, sadly, jumped from, oh gosh, if Scott Marcus was on here, he would know what letter she jumped from.
He can put it up. He can pop it up.
There, and he'll correct me. But it was almost torn down in 1949. It's kind of fun because in the 70s, 1973, Hugh Hefner held a fundraiser to bring the sign back to life. It was bad, like it was in really bad shape, falling down, just looking terrible. And each of the 9 letters received a fundraising amount of, I think it was like 27,777 or something, from a whole bunch of different people, from Alice Cooper to Gene Autry, Hugh Hefner, obviously, Andy Williams, Warner Brothers Studio. The history of the sign is really pretty cool. We're not going to go into all these little fun facts, but we'll include the link in here if you wanted to go through 20 of them. It is really difficult to get up to the Hollywood sign. Don't try to break in. Like, one of the facts here is that the Hollywood sign has almost as much security as Fort Knox. So don't be a moron and get up there. And like the guy did, what I think this was last year, and he changed it to Hollyweed.
Yes, I remember that. That was lovely. Yeah, you can get really close to the Hollywood sign though without trespassing. So
you can get close, but you can't get up and like climb it or
well, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd want to.
Well, why?
I don't know. It's cool.
You can hike up there and go behind it. You
Yeah.
can still get pretty close.
Yeah. You can get close. Lots of, spots where you can take pictures. But what do you remember of when you first moved to Hollywood? Do you remember looking at the sign?
Oh yeah, I was so excited. I remember moving to LA and like driving up and trying to figure out which street you got that iconic view
Yeah.
looking up at the Hollywood sign. And I mean, I lived straight down below it, so I looked at it every day. And even when I see it now,
Totally.
it gives me the feels. I love the Hollywood sign. I think that it represents such different things in different people, but to me it's about dreams. It's about going after your dreams.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I love it.
I had the same thing, and it's Gower. If you drive up Gower, it's a great angle there. There are a couple streets. It's not just Gower, but Gower is always the street that I remember. You can just drive straight up, and it's just right in front of you the whole time. And I agree. Even after 20 years in living in Los Angeles, you still look at it and you're like, shit, man,
You're like, yeah,
that is cool. That is cool.
I know.
Yeah. Well, happy birthday to the Hollywood sign. This week, they're going to be doing this facelift. And hopefully because of Mercury in retrograde, things don't go wrong, but we
Oh
shall.
Lord. No, it's all going to be great. The
Suddenly
Hollywood sign always perseveres.
you go across the hill tomorrow and suddenly you see the H is falling over. Oh God, I hope not.
Oh God. No, it's all good.
Let's get on to this week in ISA Insider. What do we have?
So this week we pulled this really cool article. It's on the front page of ISA Articles. It's by Peter Katz and it's titled Know Your Space. And this is an interview with Peter Katz from Story Driven. He's also a manager and producer. You guys, this is such a great article to read, really giving knowledge about the industry right now. He talks about pitching. He talks about Zoom meetings. He talks about really smart stuff about taking your concept, understanding your concept in the market today, doing pre-production work before you're even pitching your material, how long your pitch will be on a Zoom call. I mean, it's a really, really great article full of information that you should know.
It's a perfect example of what's on the ISA Insider for articles, because there's so much education in here, but you could stop there. There's just so much education. It's really well informed. But Peter Stark, he focuses on the genre space across a range of media, including film, TV, comic book writers, podcasters who work in horror, thriller, science fiction, and crime. So if you're a genre writer, even more reason to be reading this article. But with a specific reference to genre, he said, you can't simply be different for the sake of being different. It needs to tie into a bigger theme or greater meaning. But then he also kind of talks about how there was this sort of trend about moving toward meaningful genre movies or ghost movies that had this huge cultural message. And the industry has been kind of swamped with those recently. I don't know if that's necessarily going to end. But how do you feel about horror movies that have a message and say something?
I mean, I think there's room for all different kinds. I think that, once Get Out came out and it sort of had this bigger thematic story to tell underneath the scariness, I think that it sort of made people go, whoa, we can do that. Yeah. So I think there's room for your thrasher films that are just for scares. And then there's room for like horror movies with deeper meaning. I think it's the same for like romantic comedies. You can go the straight route of your structure that's like boom boom boom, this happens, or you can venture out and do a twist on the genre and do something else. You know what I mean? I think that there's room. I think just horror is somewhere that hasn't necessarily been exploited or explored in that way, in a meaningful way. So it's an easy one, and they're generally cheaper to produce. So
yeah. So excellent article, great example of what's on the ISA Insider. You should all be reading it as much as you possibly can. Why would we be having this news broadcast if we weren't promoting our ISA Insider? Let's move on to the next segment. What are we watching? And I'm going to add a little bit of a interesting tidbit. I don't think we're going to do this every single week, but I added some Nielsen ratings, mainly because from what it looks like, Shayna and I have not been watching a whole lot of new things. So what did you watch this week?
Well, okay, so this is going to tie into an event that we have coming up. So I watched Glorious which is a horror flick that's on Shudder. And it stars Ryan Quanten from True Blood, if you remember True Blood, and the voice of J.K. Simmons, who is J.K. Simmons. I mean, right. Amazing. We are doing a panel discussion with the filmmakers of that, including the female director, which is awesome, on October 5th. So go to our event page and check that out. But I actually really, really enjoyed myself in this movie. I'm not going to tell you specifics about it or the budget, because we're going to talk about that in our event, but they did a really, really great job with what they had. And it does have some like deeper thematic stuff to think about.
It's a horror,
it's a little bit deeper,
right?
Yeah.
And so for everyone who may not know, what is Shudder?
Shudder is a streaming network for mostly horror or that genre of movie. It is doing really well. I mean, Shudder has so many great films. They're accepting all of these horror and even like horror thriller, those kinds of projects. There are some historical horror. There's a movie with a raven in it that's supposed to be really cool. It's like historical horror. So yeah, check out Shudder. I believe you can do a free trial for 7 days. So if you want to watch Glories before our panel, do the free trial.
Nice. October 5th for the filmmaker panel.
Yep.
I'm watching my usuals. The latest episode of Rings of Power was so good. It was so good. But I did watch the pilot for the new Quantum Leap.
How was that?
I loved the original show.
Me too.
Here's my thing. It was not good. But Quantum Leap is such a great idea. It's impossible to screw up that show. It's possible. The only difficulty they have is making it fresh, as opposed to just a whole new, continuation or something. But right. Because you have the previous show to compete with, and it felt new back then. Now it's not new. So what do they do to try to, change it up a little bit? And what they did, which I didn't realize they're doing, is a direct continuation. Like they even reference Sam Beckett and the program that he did, and they show the actor's face and everything. And so they're not trying to just create a whole new version of it. That's like a continuation, which is fun. And the actors are good. Network TV is always a little tricky because they have to stay pretty PG. But it was fun, and I can understand why, this is going to be exciting to watch. What I think the only reason I want to keep watching is because of where they put him in the next leap. They can do so much more with special effects. And so, the second episode or the first episode ends with him jumping into an astronaut as he's literally taking off. And I'm like, that's fun. How do you not enjoy Quantum Leap?
Yeah, that's cool if they can go and do stuff like that and really and fulfill that that thing that we have inside of all of us, where we want to jump into, say, an astronaut's body, maybe not in the predicament that they're in at the moment, but we all can sort of like live vicariously through Quantum Leap. Yeah, I want to watch that. I'm hesitant though, because the original was just so iconic. I mean,
the pilot is crazy expositional, and after a while you're like, oh my god. But I would recommend it. It's worth watching.
Max recommends.
Yeah, I even watched it through commercials, which is saying something.
Oh yeah, that's commitment right there.
It was because it was after a football game, and I'm like, whatever, it's on, and then I was like, yeah, it's kind of good.
Well, let's see what people are watching according to this Nielsen article or this top 10 site that we have here.
Yeah, really weird to see this. So I don't even know what Echoes is, and we'll share the image here from Nielsen. Echoes is the #1 streamed show as of the week of August 22nd to the 28th. Never even heard of Echoes.
Me either.
No idea what that is. But then 971 million minutes watched of the Netflix original movie Me Time. I've never heard of that.
That one stars Queen Latifah, maybe?
Okay.
That one. Yeah, it's like a buddy comedy, I think. That's
streaming. And then it's so funny when you jump to TV and it's just basically football. America's Got Talent.
But then on the streaming, there's NCIS on Netflix. Like, okay.
Yeah.
Good for NCIS. And then Coco Melon on Netflix, which is a kids show, and Bluey on Disney Plus, which I totally get.
I didn't even notice Bluey. Yeah.
That's funny. And Sandman's still holding tight.
Sandman still holding tight. Boy, I didn't even notice NCIS. That is so impressive that fan base is that dedicated.
So impressive.
It's just nuts, man. So anyway, it's fun to look and check in on the Nielsen ratings. It's most of this, is usually pretty obvious. They even give you the top 10 ad spends by various companies and corporations, which is it's kind of cool information.
It's always good to check that out and find out what, outside of your little bubble or what your people are watching, what the country is watching and what they're tuning into. And
right. Okay, so I have a webinar coming up on the 28th. It's about your final act. I'm not saying just your third act, but if you're writing a feature, it's your third act. If you're writing a pilot, hour-long drama, fifth act, whatever. Final act. At the very least, the replay will be available through pro tips and tricks if you are unable to attend. It's at 11 a.m. Los Angeles time. But then there's also we're still promoting this, right? The pitch challenge.
Yep, we're still promoting the pitch challenge, which is open now until October 6th, 1 more week. So get your 90-second pitches in. Go to that page for more information and rules and make sure you do it correctly. And then we will have our live pitch panel on November 17th. And that is up on the event page. So you can register now to get a reminder so that you get the link so you can come watch.
All right, let's get into the Twitterverse here a little bit. This is an interesting tweet that we have up. We're not going to go into it too much, but we think you should definitely dive into an article that we're going to share.
From the hashtag screenwriting. This is from Cindy Beagle. I think it's Beagle. She says, this is hashtag newbies. Hashtag newbies get hung up writing their true story because it's what happened. All biopics are fictionalized. If scene occurred in real life and not moving a story forward, delete. Fictionalized events and characters connect scenes and condense time and locations. Compelling beats truth. Yeah. Hashtag screenwriting. And this goes along with an article that is up on ISA. And it's about the same thing. It's about telling a true story and how you should not only focus on the facts. It's okay to embellish and create a story, and it's based on, unless you're doing something that's like straight truth, there's always going to be things that you're going to fill in the gaps. Yeah. You need to take your writerness. Is that a word?
Sure.
You should take your own sense of story and fill in the gaps in the most interesting way.
Yeah. I would say that as good as the previous article that we talked about, this one is just as good. It's from Script Magazine, written by Barry Evans. She's a consultant. She's really great. She's been around for a long time. And she makes some fantastic points in here. And it's really kind of directly tied to this tweet because what Robert McKee says, mere occurrence brings us nowhere near the truth. What happens is fact, not truth. Truth is what we think about what happens. In other words, right where so it's referencing the universal feelings and memories and thoughts and reactions that you had in your true inspired by story, but it's okay to change it up a little bit and create a cinematic version of this. And we have to be thinking along the lines of what's the movie version of this, as opposed to I'm going to tell the story about my experience driving from Boston to Los Angeles when I moved to LA the first time. Okay. But are you just going to talk about exactly what happened? Because it was important to you. And I'm sure that it was a huge, incredible experience for you, but we don't have that direct experience. I was just thinking about this the other day about telling a story about the death of a loved one. What about, and it's so weird to say this, but what about your experience with the death of a loved one is different than all of the other ones that we've seen on TV. Your experience is extremely emotional for you. How do you get that emotion out on screen for someone else? Because we don't have reference to the entire history you have with your mom. How could we? So I think this is what we're talking about, is that just because it happened, it doesn't mean you have to put it in there. But if you do put it in there, we have to be talking about those universal feelings as opposed to just here's what happened.
What we tend to do is write in a linear way.
Yeah.
Where we're like, okay, this happened in the timeline. And you have to be okay with switching up your timeline for the sake of moving your story forward.
Hopefully that helps some folks who's, considering writing some form of a biopic based on them. But it also helps when you're trying to write a biopic about, Thomas Jefferson or something. We have to find those universal truths and speak to those.
Yeah, especially if you're writing a story about someone that's whole history has not been told. You have to fill in the gaps and create some part of the story that is not written down already or has not been told already.
The good news of the week. This is more kind of interesting news of the week.
Mhm.
There's plenty of good news that's happening around the world, but I just thought, you know what, this is something that might be a little bit interactable. So we're making up words.
We're full of words today.
This is fun because I just saw this
Something.
article and I was like, most underrated places to visit in the US. And they list 3 here: Savannah, Georgia being number 1, St. Petersburg being number 2, Harpers Ferry, West Virginia being number 3. And I guess I could see that, but from Savannah, I'm like, I don't know if that's underrated. From what I hear, Savannah is amazing.
I think they're just saying that they don't see a lot of tourist action. So they're saying like it's less touristy and they're not getting all the like tourist love.
Yeah. Okay. I just thought there was some interesting voting and polls that they do. A lot of percentages in this article. Like 2 and 3 have chosen vacation destination based on a recommendation from family or friends and have almost always ended up enjoying it, 92%. This may be why 79% agree that it's important not to judge a vacation spot before you've been there yourself. I think I personally have to take that advice. I'm not a traveler. I'm great once I get to a location. I just complain too much when I'm going.
Great. That's a great sales tool for you with the ladies.
Right.
I'm a terrible travel partner.
Yeah, you know.
I whine and complain all the time.
I didn't quite say that.
That's what I heard.
Okay.
I just complain a lot.
I'm
it's
sure
like awesome.
everybody
Sounds super fun.
Well, we'll just say, what's your favorite vacation spot in the US?
Oh my gosh. Vacation spot in the US. I guess I would say New Orleans.
Okay.
I love the energy of New Orleans. I love the food. Oh, it's so yummy. Yeah, I think that's my favorite place to go. Yeah, what's yours?
I would probably say Napa, California.
Yeah.
I love Napa. Totally my pace, slow. You just kind of meander around the hills, drink some wine. You know, I'm not the go someplace so that I can then adventure up a mountain type of person, you know.
Right.
If I go somewhere, then, and that's part of the reason we're going, of course I'll do it, but I don't want to go somewhere just so I can work harder. I want to relax when I go somewhere, you know. I'm a lazy river kind of guy. But Napa is great. It took me a while to think, like, yeah, gosh, there's so many obvious places in, you know, Europe and the rest of the world that it's like, of course, Paris and Edinburgh and London, duh.
Right.
But,
duh.
I think Napa would be the place to go.
Yeah, it's hard to choose in America, I think, because you either are traveling for a purpose to like a big city or you're visiting family. And I haven't been on a vacation in a while out, you know, in the US just to like go somewhere because it's like a commitment. And because of COVID and everything, nobody's been anywhere for a while. So got to get back out there and explore.
I'll add my little town that I'm basically in, Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. It's a great spot to come and relax, during the summer. Don't come in January. But
right.
You know, Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Throw that out there. So that is the news of the week, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. And Shayna,
see you next time.
See you next time, everybody.